Developing now, people in one Chesapeake neighborhood are coming together in hopes of stopping a pipeline project from moving forward. They were out in full force in the Georgetown neighborhood this morning. 13 News Now reporter Adriana Diablo explains their concerns.
This is where the pipeline is being built. There are apartments just feet away from it. And one of the protesters we spoke to today lives in that house just behind this fence. People living in Chesapeake shouted that message loud and clear during today's protest. Neighbors, young children, and environmental groups came together to speak out against the Southside Connector distribution project. Protesters fear the potential threat of a gas leak.
These are our children, and it just appears that no one cares.
Alma White's home of 32 years directly faces the pipeline.
Even though it's not on my property, I am still in danger.
The 9-mile, 24-inch pipeline will run through the Georgetown neighborhood and right across Thurgood Marshall Elementary School.
We bought these homes to retire in, and now someone comes in, they're going to forcibly put pipes in our neighborhood. The health concern, if these fumes leak, is methane gas, and they're very powerful.
We reached out to Virginia Natural Gas about the concerns. A spokesperson responded saying the pipeline meets all safety and regulatory requirements and that, quote, public, employee, and pipeline safety is our highest priority. The spokesperson added it's the company's, quote, responsibility to make sure the utility corridor remains secure and the public is protected. Despite several protests, the city of Chesapeake has approved the completion of the project.
It's insane, and they expect us to sleep with this pipeline in our backyards.
The pipeline is expected to start working this fall. In Chesapeake, Adriana Diablo, 13 News Now.